Merci beaucoup to
Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
patience. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's news conference regarding the final report from an investigation into a potential neurological syndrome of unknown cause. Bonjour tout le monde.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this press conference on the final report stemming from an investigation of possible neurological symptoms of unknown cause.
Afternoon in the following order are Dr. Natalie Bonville, Vice President of Medical Affairs of Vitalité Health Network. Dr. Jennifer Russell, the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health. Dr. Howard New, Deputy Chief Public Health Officer, Public Health Agency of Canada. Dr. Susan Breen, Vice President of Medical, Academic, and Research Affairs for Horizon Health Network, and the Honorable Dorothy Shepherd, Minister of Health. Les porte-paroles
Spokespeople for today in the following order are Dr. Nathalie Bonville, Vice President of Medical Affairs for the Vitalité Health Network, Chief Clinical Officer Jennifer Russell, and the Administrative Chef for Public Health and the Health Agency of Canada, Dr. Howard Moon. Dr. Susan Breen, Vice President of Medical Affairs at University and Research for the Horizon Health Network, and Honorable Dorothy Shepherd, Minister of Health. Bonville. Madam Minister, Dr. Russell, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of my co-president from the Neurological Syndrome of Unknown Causes, Dr. Susan Breen, and of all the members of the committee, I'm here to present to you the results of our work. Moreover, I'd like to point out the meticulous and hard work of the members of this committee who accepted this mandate to clear up the important issues that tied with the investigation on the neurological symptom of unknown causes. As you know, the committee was composed of 6 independent neurologists who all exercise in the province and have various expertise in the field of neurology. The 2 co-chairs of the Health Horizon and Vitality, and finally of the Special Liaison Officer with the Public Health Front. Within the framework of this, by Health in Nouveau-Brunswick, we have received the mandate to ensure supervision and to formulate recommendations by independent experts about the precise issues that to determine the presence of a possible neurological symptom of unknown causes by examining 48 cases associated where patients have certain signs and symptoms in common and the absence of confirmed diagnosis. The role of neurologists within this committee was to undertake an examination by peer and ensure that the expert case requirements were, but also to help to determine the probability of other diagnoses, where a more in-depth investigation would be indicated. This work consists in a complete work of this diagnosis for each point as diligently done in supervision by their peers. From the beginning, the committee established a rigorous protocol, ethical one, allowing to proceed to the exam in respecting the right to private life of the people concerned and by reducing the risk of partiality. Between August 2020 and February 2022, the committee undertook examinations of 48 people identified as members of that grouping. Within the clinical, the cases were attributed in neurologists on a haphazard way when looked at them independently. Then the 2 neurologists met to discuss their results and the comparison. Finally, they presented their results and have discussed it with the committee. The complete history of the data and the patient's data were compiled, and demographic issues systemic and previous medical, social, and family issues, treatments and follow-up, and the following exams and investigations, including laboratory tests and diagnostic imaging results. Detailed information were gathered in each category so as to describe the characteristics of symptoms and signs and their progression or their solution, and the therapies and the treatment. In the report that you have in hand, you'll also find comment and recommendations by the examiners concerning the need for a new exam or other tests. Globally, after having undertaken the examination, the neurologist offered alternative diagnoses in 41 patients, that is the 85% of the cohort. Alternative diagnostics included different known public health problems like Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetic, inflammatory. Interpreter regrets, but this is being read with no documentation on our parts. It's very hard to follow. And all these symptoms, syndrome, chronic fatigue syndromes, next chronic problem, cancer. And in light of these notes, that can include that all some of these subjects present individual symptoms. They are not affected by a known disease, and there's no proof of the existence of a group of people affected by neurological symptoms of unknown cause. The committee noted that out of 48 subjects, none were meeting all the criteria for definition of a case. Moreover, above these conclusions on examining the cases, the committee wants to formulate recommendations for the next step. First recommendation tied with the protocol. The examination was not able to conclude that neurologists had asked a second opinion before referring those people to the group of suspect cases of unknown neurological symptoms. The present symptoms did not correspond to a known diagnosis. However, the committee recommends that all future cases affected by the new syndrome and or new disease be examined by a second specialist, and in this case, a neurologist or geriatric specialist. Second, given the difficulties encountered to have access to the information on the patient, which brought out useless delays in examining the cases, the committee recommends that written protocols be put in place for exchange individual cases with public health of Brunswick so as for future examination. We're also proposing 3 recommendations that tied with the patient. Communications with the primary care physicians to inform them of what the committee found, supervision and recommendations of the neurologist in order to have more tests or to have a reassessment. It is to be noted that the committee understands that these people continue to receive care through their primary health care provider from the interdisciplinary care for neurodegenerative diseases in Moncton or other specialized providers while the investigation was ongoing. Numerous patients and members of their family are going to have questions about their state of mind. All patients aimed with this investigation should receive access to continuous care under supervision of a specialist. Finally, the committee recommends that the interdisciplinary clinic for neurodegenerative diseases in Moncton continue to offer continuous support to the people who are designated as being part of that grouping and other citizens in New Brunswick. And this specialized clinic was created to investigate and treatment of neurodegenerative diseases. Moreover, I'd like to inform that there are other avenues open to claims. Finally, the clinic, atypical or early problems in neurodegeneration is the Jumont and neurology department. In conclusion, I'd like to point out that members of the committee recognize that patients who originally were included in this grouping have serious health problems with a lot of effect on their lives. Neurodegenerative diseases are very complicated and complex and very lengthy to diagnose and understand. We equally recognize that in spite of the clarifications brought by this report and the rejection of speculation about neurological symptoms of possible unknown causes, the patient's sufferings is still there. and the work of investigation and follow-up and support must continue. We also hope in all sincerity that better defined procedures define the process as to stop suffering of all those concerned patients. And once again, interpreter regrets, but we had no copy of this in advance. And we have a copy at the present time. So
en ville et je veux aussi remercier Dr. Breen ici pour être ici aujourd'hui et déplacé de leur
thank you for their place. Thank you.
thank Dr. Bonville and Dr. Breen for being here today. They had to travel to make this possible. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour. Avant de vous faire
Before mentioning the conclusions of this investigation on this outbreak, I'd like to point out that the 48 people who are part of this experience was extremely stressful, not only for them, but for their close people, for those close to them who supported them during this outbreak.
This outbreak investigation, I want to recognize the 48 people at the heart of this. This experience has been extremely stressful, not only for them, but for their friends and family who have supported them throughout this ordeal. I hope by now they have all had the same opportunity to discuss their cases with their primary care providers and to decide on a path forward for treatment and care. Today, we are bringing to a close a two-pronged public health investigation. New Brunswick's Epidemiology and Surveillance Branch conducted extensive interviews with people in the cluster last summer. It concluded in October there were no shared behaviors, foods, or environmental exposures that could be a risk factor for the syndrome. In other words, New Brunswickers should feel confident that nothing in the environment is making them sick. Comme l'a dit le docteur,
As Dr. Bonville mentioned, the supervision committee agreed unanimously that these 40 people would not have been identified as a unlogical cause, and the proof that there's no syndrome of that type. Public health drive to the
have heard from Dr. Bonville, the Oversight Committee has unanimously agreed that these 48 people should never have been identified as having a neurological syndrome of unknown cause, and that based on the evidence reviewed, no such syndrome exists. Public health concurs with these findings. But I stress again, this does not mean that these people aren't seriously ill. It means they are ill with a known neurological condition. This can include in conditions such as Alzheimer's disease, Lewy body dementia, diabetic or inflammatory polyneuropathy, Parkinson's disease, post-concussion syndrome, or cancer. So where did this start and how did we get here? The possibility of a potential cluster emerged during ongoing meetings discussing routine monitoring of CJD in New Brunswick. CJD, or Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, is a rare, fatal, degenerative brain disorder caused by an infectious protein or prion. The Public Health Agency of Canada has a CJD surveillance system to track cases across the country. Individual physicians send patient referrals to the CJD-SS. In return, they provide laboratory testing, experts for consultations, clinical coordination, and support for investigation. In early 2020, there was an unusual increase in the number of New Brunswick patients being referred to CJD-SS. Tous les cas, sauf deux,
all the cases except 2 had been pointed out by the same treating doctor. Public Health New Brunswick was not informed of this situation before a meeting in September 2020, during which representatives from Public Health Agency of Canada described a certain number of cases in New Brunswick presenting symptoms close to the ones of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, but which analysis did not reveal a prion disease.
Had come from a single referring physician. Public Health New Brunswick was not notified this was occurring until a meeting in September of that year, where officials from the Public Health Agency of Canada described a number of New Brunswick cases with CJD-like symptoms, but testing negative for human prion diseases. A conversation began between CJD-SS, Public Health New Brunswick, and the main referring physician about whether these individuals were part of a potential cluster or group of cases with a known syndrome of unknown cause. With a neurological syndrome of unknown cause. A draft case definition was provided a few weeks later, and Public Health New Brunswick accepted this case definition. This was when Public Health New Brunswick launched its outbreak investigation. Bien que cela
Although this can seem very worrisome, investigations on the outbreak are an integral part of the work of public health, and it's not rare not to know the cause or the source of the disease before the investigation be concluded.
an outbreak investigation is an ordinary part of public health work. We don't often know the cause or source of an illness until the investigation is complete. Investigating clusters, disease outbreaks, or other threats is part of public health's mandate to protect the health of New Brunswickers. And a mystery illness is only a mystery until it's solved. When disease outbreaks or other public health threats emerge, public health teams investigate. They identify the cause, they quickly implement control measures, and collect evidence to recommend ways to stop the spread. The Centre for Disease Control refers to these teams as disease detectives. Depending on the findings during an investigation, investigators may explore different areas. In this case, Public Health New Brunswick met with multiple experts to try to answer basic questions such as, who is sick? What are their symptoms? Is there any pattern in symptoms among the sick people? Is the sickness related to any exposure to a particular substance or environmental factor? Where could they have been exposed? La maladie est-elle liée?
Were the diseases tied to exposure of a specific substance or an environmental factor? Or were they being exposed?
The Enhanced Epidemiological Surveillance Questionnaire. Many experts were involved in the development of this survey, and the questionnaire was extremely detailed but could find no common exposures in the group. You can find both the 74-page questionnaire and the results of that survey on our webpage. Au cours de l'enquête, Santé publique.
During the investigation, public health was made aware of many unfounded opinions that were not proven, who were amplified in the media. There's some rumors led to believe that soil, water, and environmental factors were problematic.
Public health became aware of many unfounded theories and uncorroborated opinions being amplified in the media. Some of these rumors suggested that soil, water, and environmental testing was suspected. That is untrue. It would be a direct violation of public health's mandate. My apologies. It would be a direct violation of public health's mandate to not protect the health and safety of Brunswickers and a breach of public trust. We have posted links on our webpage to ongoing municipal, provincial, and federal collaboration to ensure safe drinking water for the monitoring of environmental toxins and contaminants and the safe harvesting of fish, lobster, and shellfish. Particular attention was paid to cyanobacteria toxins produced by blue-green algae, as this is a known risk to public health. No link was found. You can find more information about blue-green algae monitoring in the frequently asked questions section of our webpage or at the Public Health Advisories and Alerts page on the GNB website. Okay, that's better. Some of these changes we can make ourselves, others are regulatory changes that require government support or action at federal, provincial, or territorial level. In our final report, Public Health New Brunswick has made several recommendations to ensure that a situation such as this one does not occur again. Some of these changes we can make ourselves, others are regulatory changes that require government support or action at the federal, provincial, territorial level. À l'avenir, Santé publique.
In the future, Public Health New Brunswick could ask a clinical exam of cases by a second specialist doctor before including them in a cluster of cases whose epidemiology is unknown. If both the doctors do not agree, the case should be presented to a group of specialist doctors or a committee of supervision oversight committee our decision, we recommend that regulation, some is protocols taken into us during the Public Health Act to make it compulsory that the public health of all suspect cases of any existing variant or new disease with prior public health project to continue to use the cooperation with Public Health Agency Canada and other federal partners, provincial partners to monitor the National Oversight Committee for Creutzfeldt Jakob disease or to improve the processes tied to investigation on the outbreak, including those where the prion disease was excluded. To this end, support the formation of federal task force, the provincial, federal, territorial to the examination.
Brunswick may request a clinical review of cases by a second specialist physician prior to including cases in a cluster of unknown etiology. If the two physicians do not agree, the case should be presented to a board of specialty doctors or an oversight committee for a decision. We are recommending that the Reporting and Diseases Regulation under the Public Health Act be amended to require a suspect case of any existing or new variant of human or animal prion disease be reported to public health. Public Health New Brunswick should continue to build on collaborations with Public Health Agency of Canada and other federal and provincial partners to improve and modernize the national CJD surveillance system and to establish or improve processes related to outbreak investigations, including those where prion disease has been excluded. To this end, we support the creation of federal, provincial, and territorial working group that would support this review. Before I conclude, there are many individuals whose efforts should be recognized. Thank you to the public health nurses who conducted the enhanced surveillance interviews. Their work was integral to this process. I would like to thank those collaborators from across the country who responded to our call to action and came together as a multidisciplinary team of experts. They helped Public Health New Brunswick discern plausible hypotheses, build investigation tools, and inform the course of our investigation. Thank you to our partners, the Public Health Agency of Canada, for our continued collaboration to modernize and improve the processes for supporting the health and well-being of our citizens. I am very grateful to the members of the Oversight Committee who gave tirelessly of their considerable expertise despite carrying large and challenging caseloads during their normal functions. We are also grateful to the Mind Clinic, which is providing coordinated care and support to affected individuals and their families. Enfin, et
Finally, I'd like to thank all the participants in this investigation, members of the family. The conclusion of the investigation are going to clear up the situation and will help them in the program.
to the individuals who were part of this investigation and their families, I thank you for your participation and sincerely hope that the findings of this investigation will provide you with a clearer path as you move forward. Thank you, merci beaucoup, and I will now turn it to Public Health Agency of Canada, Dr. Howard.
Okay, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Dr. Russell, and good evening, good afternoon. Everyone.
My name is Dr. Howard New, and I'm the Deputy Chief Public Health Officer at the Public Health Agency of Canada. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I'm calling in from is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. First of all, I would like to say that collectively, our thoughts are with the patients and the families of those involved. We understand the impacts that this investigation has had on each and every one of you. Protecting the health of Canadians is of the utmost importance to the Government of Canada. The Government of New Brunswick led the investigation into a cluster of cases of atypical neurological syndrome. Throughout the investigation, the Public Health Agency of Canada has been collaborating with the province. Over the course of the investigation, the Public Health Agency of Canada provided specialized diagnostic laboratory and neuropathology services and expertise to rule out prion disease. And through the Canadian Field Epidemiology Program, we deployed several epidemiologists and assisted in the development of the epidemiological questionnaire. Our Canadian Creutzfeldt Jakob disease surveillance system helped rule out Creutzfeldt Jakob disease. This long-standing federal program conducts national surveillance for all types of human prion disease in Canada. All human prion diseases are provincially reportable and nationally notifiable in Canada. The Public Health Agency of Canada is pleased that the investigation has come to a close and supports the investigation's findings that this cluster does not represent the neurological syndrome of unknown cause. Public Health Agency of Canada welcomes the recommendations from the government of New Brunswick. We will continue to work closely with the provinces and territories, partners, and stakeholders to monitor and understand the risks to human health from neurological diseases, and will build on any lessons learned during this investigation. The Public Health Agency of Canada will also continue to build on collaboration with Public Health New Brunswick and other federal and provincial partners to enhance and modernize the Canadian Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease surveillance system. To this end, we support the creation of a federal, provincial, and territorial working group for this purpose. Thank you. Je me présente, Dr. Howard.
I'm Dr. O'Neill, for Public Health at Public Health Agency. I'd like to point out that the territory from fall are defeated by the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. First, I'd like to say that our thoughts are with the patient and to the family affected. We understand the repercussions that this investigation have had on each and every one of us. For the government, the protection of Canadians is of capital importance. The government of New Brunswick has led the investigation on a cluster of groups for atypical neurological disease. Charging this Public Health Agency Canada cooperated with the province. During the investigation, the Public Health Agency of Canada offered expertise for specialized services for analyzing neuropathology to eliminate prion disease. And we have deployed many epidemiologists to help to establish a question through our system for supervision of our oversight for Creutzfeldt disease. We can eliminate Creutzfeldt disease. This federal program has supervised nationally all these types of human prion. All cases of this human prion disease must be declared provincially and nationally as well. And Public Health Agency Canada is really happy of the conclusion of the investigation. Support the conclusion according to this cluster of group does not represent a neurological symptom of an cause. Public Health Agency Canada received favorably and the recommendation of the government of Brunswick will continue to cooperate closely with the provinces and the territory, our partners, all intervene to supervise and to understand the risk for public health coming from neurological diseases. We're going to use these lessons learned in investigation. Public Health Agency Canada is going to continue as well to aim cooperation with Public Health New Brunswick and other parts, federal and provincial. We want in view to modernize and improve the Canadian oversight for Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. To this end, we support the establishment of our task force, federal, provincial, territorial task group to deal with this. Thank you. Once again, the interpreter says he has not received any of the documents and they're being read very quick.
Bonjour. As Horizon's Vice President of Medical, Academic, and Research Affairs, I oversee Horizon's Moncton Interdisciplinary Neurodegenerative Diseases Clinic, known as the Mind Clinic, and I was the co-chair of Public Health New Brunswick's Oversight Committee to support this investigation. I want to acknowledge the patients and families who have been anxiously waiting for the results of this report, the answers to their questions, and the next steps. I would also like to take a moment to thank all of the clinicians and experts who care for these patients. Your work is very appreciated. I would like to explain the role of the Mind Clinic has played in this situation and the important role it will continue to play in the healthcare system in New Brunswick going forward. The Mind Clinic, located in Horizon's the Moncton Hospital, is a tertiary care service that has provided care and services to the patients identified as part of the cluster investigated by New Brunswick Public Health. The patients were referred to the specialty clinic by physicians across the province for their diagnosis and care based on their progressive neurodegenerative symptoms. It requires the expertise of a team made of several specialists in the field of neurodegenerative diseases. The Mind Clinic is continuing to provide ongoing testing, assessment, and care and treatment to patients who do not have a diagnosis, as well to assist their families in assessing and accessing community resources. The patients were asked to follow up with their primary care provider following the letter from the Oversight Committee, and they will continue to have access to specialists at the Mind Clinic. The clinical care and expertise that our Mind Clinic team provides will continue to focus on each patient and their families and their individual needs. The Mind Clinic's mission extends beyond the assessment and care of these 48 patients. The Mind Clinic is a cross-specialty collaborative clinic for all adult progressive neurodegenerative diseases. This clinic's goal is to assess and diagnose and provide ongoing support and improve the quality of life of patients and their families. The Mind Clinic now has a dedicated team of many professionals, including geriatricians, neurologists, registered nurses, neuropsychologists, social worker, and research manager. Also, associates of psychiatry and neurology also support the team. Neurodegenerative disease is a term for a range of conditions affecting the nerve cells in the brain that can cause problems with mental functioning and or movement disorders. Progressive means that the onset of symptoms is faster than typical cases. Since April 2021, when the clinic was established, the clinic has had over 200 patients from all over New Brunswick referred to them. The great work that this team is doing will continue to be needed well in the future. Horizon is prepared to expand the multi-specialty clinic to be able to provide care for even more patients throughout New Brunswick with neurodegenerative diseases. The Mind Clinic will also be collaborating with others to conduct important research with provincial and national experts to improve our understanding of neurodegenerative diseases, and will study how we can identify and treat those conditions. We understand that in other jurisdictions that this coordinated care model could even reduce the number of emergency department visits, hospitalizations, and long-term care admissions. Thank you to the Mind Clinic team leaders who play a valuable role in our health system. To the patients and families, we know this has been a difficult time. We appreciate your patience, your engagement, and will continue to work hard to provide the best care for all. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Bonjour. Yesterday, I received Public Health's final report into its investigation of a potential neurological syndrome of unknown cause. Public Health New Brunswick report accepts the finding of an oversight committee that independently reviewed all 48 potential cases. The committee has concluded that no such syndrome exists. The committee a conclude
The committee has concluded that such symptoms exist.
recommendation to improve the way potential new diseases are reported and investigated. I want to thank Public Health New Brunswick for their thorough work in this investigation, which was conducted in the midst of a global pandemic. I am also grateful to the Oversight Committee for undertaking an enormous task when they have no shortage of work. Thank you for your commitment to providing quality care to New Brunswickers. Je vous remercie.
I'd like to thank you for your commitment to provide care, of quality care for people.
This morning, I participated in a briefing with patients and families who were previously told that they or their loved one had a neurological syndrome of unknown cause. We can finally say today that this is not the case. This entire process has been extremely trying for these families, and this news was difficult for them to hear. Throughout this time, they have been desperately seeking answers and hoping for a cure. It's heartbreaking to have to tell them the syndrome did not exist. I recognize that the process we put into place was frustrating for them. Je suis consciente
I am aware of the frustration
of the epidemiological investigation. Public Health conducted 34 interviews, asking 74 questions each. That represents weeks and weeks of work. Public health investigations take time and are completely confidential to uphold patient privacy. We are unable to talk about the findings until the data was fully compiled and the report complete. The Oversight Committee had to review the records of each patient. Each review was specific to a particular patient and subject to doctor-patient confidentiality. We had to allow this work to run its course in order to provide you with the information we are sharing today. The families have asked us for respect and dignity. The famille
the family have asked that we treat with proof of respect.
important that each patient receive the committee's recommendations about their specific case from their primary care provider before the results of the committee's work was shared publicly. The focus now must turn to providing these individuals with the follow-up assessment and care that they need for what are most certainly serious illnesses. I am confident that our province's physicians are fully capable of providing that care, but I advise the patients and their families today that they are welcome to seek a second opinion outside the province if they wish. We also need to take steps to ensure that this doesn't happen again. The stress and anxiety that these families have experienced should not have occurred. I am accepting Public Health's recommendations that the reporting and disease regulation under the Public Health Act be amended and will bring that to government for its consideration. We are also recommending the creation of a federal, provincial, and territorial working group to review and modernize processes related to CJD surveillance and any subsequent outbreak investigations that may occur from this surveillance. If any good has come of this, it is that we now have the multidisciplinary clinic dedicated to neurodegenerative conditions. And although this was initially established to support the 48 people in the cluster, it has now seen more than 200 patients from across the province. The need for comprehensive and multidisciplinary care was there. Il y avait un
There was real for multidisciplinary.
has expanded to include a team made up of geriatricians, neurologists, registered nurses, a social worker, and now a research manager with knowledgeable research experience. I know that there are other patients out there who have wondered if they might be suffering from this potential syndrome. Others were told that they had this potential syndrome, but were not part of the files that were provided to Public Health. If you have not been contacted by Public Health at this point, your file was not provided to Public Health. However, the Mind Clinic can serve your needs capably as well, and I encourage you to contact your primary care providers to get a referral. Every day, New Brunswickers receive very difficult news about their health from healthcare providers who are committed to providing them with the best possible care. Public Health is hard at work in our communities, investigating disease, preventing illness, and promoting population health. All of this work is done in the best interests of the people of this province. The healthcare system exists to serve all New Brunswickers. It will continue to serve New Brunswickers, including these 48 families, patients and their families, to the very best of its ability. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Minister and doctors. Merci beaucoup.
You-
From members of the media, each reporter will have one question. You have the right to pose your question in the language of your choice. Please ensure your microphones are placed on mute. Nous allons maintenant procéder.
We'll now proceed to questions from media. You have a right to ask your in the language of your choice. Each reporter will have one question. So, sure that Laura Brown.
Hi there. I have a question that's similar to the one that I had in my technical briefing. There are a group of them that you guys have identified in the report that you say have 4 clinical features that match the case definition, but not completely. Can you explain that a bit more? So are those people part of the group that you feel need further investigation?
Hi, Laura. During the technical briefing, Dr. Bonville did explain that none of the patients met the case definition. And with respect to any of the symptoms of any of the individuals that need ongoing support, whether it be further diagnostic tests, referrals, etc., they can get that support, that treatment at the Mind Clinic, those assessments. And as Minister Shepherd mentioned, that if somebody wanted to check outside of the province, they are welcome. Dr. Bonville has.
Thank you. Nicholas Steinbach, Radio Canada.
That you can find back.
We're going to go and proceed to Angela Gilbert with CBC. Kayla Hounsel, CBC. Carissa Donkin, CBC. Oh, vas-y, Nico. Oui.
Oh, sorry. OK, c'est bon. Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais savoir.
I'd like to know what Dr. Olimaro's status now and if there's going to be a follow-up concerning his future in the next few weeks. The report is to be tabled. The responsible teams are going to analyze. At the present time, our priorities is to the patient. We have processes in place that do not fall from Vice President for medical services. So concerned people are going to look at the file, look at the report, and make the decision if there are measures to be taken, steps to be taken.
CBC.
Thanks, Bruce. My question is for Dr. Russell. Dr. Russell, I just want to talk a little bit about the memo that was sent out last March to the healthcare providers in the province, and this provided the case definition, which the report now says was vague and overly broad. Do you believe that public health in New Brunswick did its due diligence before raising the red flag, particularly when it comes to perhaps detecting that the case definition was vague and overly broad? And if not, why not?
Hi, Carissa. So basically, the process for any investigation is quite similar, and in terms of establishing case definition. And when the oversight committee was established, it was within their mandate to change that case definition if they saw fit, but they did not see that being necessary.
Thank you. Kevin Bissett, Canadian Press. Catherine Allard, Radio-Canada.
Radio-Canada.
Hogarth, CHCO.
Thank you, Bruce. I should let the other reporters know they probably need to press *6 to unmute themselves. My question is for Minister Shepherd and/or Dr. Russell. In early January, The Guardian published an article which included an interview with an unnamed whistleblower from Vitalite. The article claimed that caregivers of some of the cases under investigation developed symptoms similar to the cases, suggesting environmental factors might be a factor. How do you respond to this claim?
Thank you for the question, Vicki. I can only say that the Mind Clinic is there for any referrals that can be looked at, and I'm not aware of any more than one additional report to Public Health Agency of Canada, which is under investigation. But there is not a numerous number of cases that have been put forward, so I'm not sure I cannot validate that.
Hi, Vicki. The good news story coming out of today, despite the challenges, grief and anxiety that people have experienced, that we've identified a way forward with respect to a process that makes sure that falls tracks, sure that everybody who needs care, investigation, treatment, get that, whether it's at the clinic or with respect to anything that looks unusual or new, having the process and recommendations for changes to the Public Health Act, et cetera, in terms of reporting and making sure that there are physicians to corroborate any new or different outbreak investigation referrals. So having highlighted all of these new processes, again, our work with Public Health Agency of Canada to ensure that moving forward we have a very rigorous process in place, we can really ensure that we ensure that people who require treatment investigation will get that. Again, either at the Mind Clinic and separately that they wanted to.
Thank you. Suzanne Lapointe, Global TV.
Hi there. I'm just wondering if you've determined that this disease doesn't exist, why have you made the decision to expand the Mind Clinic?
I think I can answer that, but if Dr. Breen needs to jump in, she can. We absolutely know that this multidisciplinary team is a very good approach to helping patients with neurological illnesses, and so especially degenerative. And so that's where this clinic is going to focus. And we know that it can't be anything but good. And so we've resolved, and Horizon has resolved to ensure that it continues.
Thank you.
Louis-Philippe Morin avec CHAU TVA. Sarah Seeley, Brunswick News.
Question is about all of those patients or New Brunswickers who might be kind of skeptical still about how things were handled or how things are going to be happening going forward. And I was just wondering what you have to say about kind of your reaction to the skepticism.
It's unfortunate, but I can understand it. So we have been very methodical, very thorough. Public health has been very methodical and very thorough with this approach. It is scientific. It has been standard practice, best practice, and so I have to have some confidence in the experts that have put themselves out and come and stepped up to help with this. and it's for public review and expertise review. So I have to have confidence that they've done their work.
Simon Delatte,
Simon Delatte.
des Nouvelles.
Yes, I'd like to know what lessons you'd like to draw from this issue. If we have to start again from zero, what would you do differently? Mainly in the way that everything. So I believe that there are many lessons that we've learned during the process, but the positive one is that we found a way of improving processes in cooperation with Public Health Canada Agency and as well with the Mind Clinic, and as well for the referral in the future to ensure that we're not going to repeat such a situation.
Clo, 91.9 The Bend. Océane Doucette, Radio-Canada. Erica Butler, CHMA. Greg Mercer, Globe and Mail. Dan Hurley, Neurology Today. Rachel Huizinga, allnewbrunswick.com.
Hi, I'm actually reporting for the New Brunswick. My question is for Dr. Russell. Almost exactly a year ago, you said this is most likely a new disease. Now you're saying there is no new disease. How can the public trust this conclusion you've come to today, given that the province's chief medical officer of health was wrong about that only a year ago?
Well, we have so much more information today compared to what we had a year ago, and that's because of the entire team's work at Public Health, but also with the Oversight Committee. So, having gone through all of the cases with the case definition, with the neurologists who were on the Oversight Committee, I think they spent at least 2 hours per case file, 2 to 4 hours, longer actually. So to have that many specialists involved, our epidemiologist team and our work with Public Health Agency of Canada, I certainly am not infallible in terms of coming to the hypothesis that I did a year ago. So, but having all of this new information and the conclusions and rigor, along with multidisciplinary involvement of other departments like staff, et cetera, I'm much more confident today because of that contribution to the new information we have now that we are able to give at this time. And at the end of the day, the most important thing are the patients and their families, and making sure that they get the correct diagnosis and treatment support that is available at the Mind Clinic currently. And as I reiterate what Minister Shepherd said, that if members of that group wish to have a second outside of the province, they are welcome.
Steve McKinley, Toronto Star. Amanda Coletta with the Washington Post. Angela Gilbert with CBC.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi. My question is of the members of the cluster. I know Dr. Marrero, one of his main concerns, and I think what initially sort of set him down this course, was that many of the patients that he was seeing that he couldn't figure out what was going on, they were very young. And we've never had a complete breakdown of ages. And particularly now that we see that I think the majority of them, 29, I believe it was, have rapid onset dementia as their possible diagnoses. I'm just wondering if the province would provide a breakdown of the ages for those individuals.
Sorry to be so long getting to you here. I'm sorry, you said page 13 has the 12. The report is online now, but we will give you the patient. The median age was 57, a range of 18 to 85. Age 40 or younger, there were 10, equaling 21%. And I think that's all I have with an age breakdown. The 48 patients, 57 was the median age from between the range of 18 to 85, and 10 were under 40.
Thank you. Kayla Hounsel.
Hey there, Kayla was having some issues with her microphone, but I can ask her question if you're okay with that.
I can gonna go proceed to Tara Clow right now. If time permits, I'll cycle back. Tara Clow with the 91.9 The Bend. Kevin Bissick, Canadian Press. His question is, the families of the cluster patients have reported hearing of many other patients who have presented to the Mind Clinic with similar symptoms. Do you have numbers, and will those beyond the 48 now get second opinion?
So public health has not been made aware of any additions to this cluster through the Mind Clinic. I think I'm accurate in saying that. And so if there is a primary care provider referring, the Mind Clinic would make a judgment from there. I'm going to let Dr. Russell add.
Yeah, certainly with the new process in place, we will accept those referrals in terms of when they're identified. The process that is established right now. So, but we haven't received. If we have received, it would only be any. We've only received one. But again, we would be happy to receive those, and we just have to notify.
Catherine Allard, Radio Canada. Louis-Philippe Morin, CHAU-TV. Greg Mercer, Globe and Mail. Erica Butler, CHMA. Steve McKinley, Toronto Star. Océane Doucette, Radio-Canada. Dan Hurley, Neurology Today. Suzanne Lapointe, Global TV.
I've already asked my question. I'm good.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm unfortunate that we are running out of time. We have run out of time. Voilà la fin de notre
That's the end of our update.
login. I suggest that you send us your questions through email, and we will have to get back to you that way. Merci beaucoup.